Why calmness is a superpower. Stoicism's secret. I used to think that being calm meant being, well, emotionless. That to handle the constant buzzing stress of modern life, I had to build some kind of wall inside myself, suppress everything, and just power through. I was completely wrong. I was constantly anxious. My own reactions were controlling me, and my mind felt like a non-stop battlefield. My baseline stress was a constant, humming 8 out of 10. You know that feeling? And my screen time? It was a monument to my distraction, easily creeping over 5 hours a day. I was drowning in a sea of notifications, endless to-do lists, and this low-grade hum of anxiety that just followed me everywhere. I felt like a puppet, pulled around by every impulse, every frustrating email, every negative headline. Then I stumbled upon a quote from the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, written nearly 2,000 years ago. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't just some motivational quote you'd see on a poster. It felt like a direct challenge, a challenge to how I was living my life. So I decided to put this ancient philosophy to the test. For 1 full week, I was going to live like a Stoic. I wasn't just going to read about it. I was going to apply its principles to every single stressful, frustrating, and chaotic moment. My goal was to find out what Marcus Aurelius was really talking about, to see if calmness was just a passive state, or if it was something else entirely. What I discovered was a hidden superpower, a practical operating system for navigating our high-stress world that anyone can learn. Introducing the experiment, the proposed solution. Before I jumped in, I had to understand what I was really getting myself into. First off, let's clear something up. Stoicism isn't about becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. That's maybe the biggest misconception out there. It's not about suppressing your emotions, but about understanding them, managing them, and not letting them be the only thing driving your decisions. The Stoics thinkers like the former slave Epictetus, the powerful statesman Seneca, and Emperor Marcus Aurelius lived through plagues, wars, and insane political turmoil. And yet, they developed practical ways to keep their inner peace, even when the world outside was in chaos. The core idea, and this is the game changer, is deceptively simple. The dichotomy of control. This principle, which Epictetus championed, says that some things are up to us, and some things just aren't. We control our opinions, our choices, our actions. We don't control what other people do, the economy, or whether it rains on our picnic. The Stoics argued that most of our anxiety comes from a simple mistake, trying to control the uncontrollable. It's not the events themselves that mess with us, but our judgment of them. My experiment was to live by this for 7 days. I built a toolkit of 10 Stoic habits to practice. Things like starting each day with a Stoic quote, journaling, practicing gratitude, and most importantly, forcing a deliberate pause before reacting to anything. I'd also try what the Stoics called voluntary discomfort, like taking a cold shower, to build a little resilience. So, my hypothesis was simple. If I could really, truly focus my energy only on my responses and just accept everything else, would my chronic stress finally go down? Would I feel more in control, even when life felt out of control? I was about to find out if a 2,000-year-old philosophy could hold up in the 21st century. The journey, days 1-3, the struggle. Day 1 was, let's just say, it was a disaster. It felt less like a philosophical journey and more like a constant, painful reminder of how reactive I truly was. I started the morning with a Seneca quote about how we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. Felt profound for about 5 minutes. Then I opened my email. A client sent a curt, demanding message, filled with what felt like totally unfair criticism of a project I'd spent weeks on. The old me, the me from just 24 hours ago, would have fired back an equally sharp, defensive reply. The new Stoic me was supposed to pause, so I did. I just sat there, my heart pounding, fingers hovering over the keyboard. My mind was just screaming, "This is an attack. They think I'm incompetent. I have to defend myself, right now." The pause wasn't calm, it was a pressure cooker. I was white-knuckling it, and in the end, I failed. I wrote back a reply that was polite, but you could still feel the defensiveness. The rest of the day was pretty much the same. Someone cut me off in traffic, and I muttered insults under my breath. A news alert popped up, and I felt that familiar knot of dread in my stomach. The experiment felt like a complete flop. I wasn't some wise Stoic. I was just an anxious guy who was now hyper-aware of how anxious he was, which, let me tell you, is somehow even worse. Day 2 didn't get much better. I tried the voluntary discomfort thing and took a cold shower. It was definitely uncomfortable, but I didn't feel a magical surge of resilience. I just felt cold and miserable. Later, a meeting at work ran way over, throwing my whole day off track. I could feel my frustration building, that feeling of losing control. I tried to use the dichotomy of control. Is this in my control? I asked myself. Nope, the meeting length wasn't. My response was, but just knowing that didn't make the frustration vanish. I spent the rest of the day feeling rushed and irritable. That night, I wrote in my journal, "This is way harder than it looks. I feel like I'm in a constant fight with my own impulses, and I'm losing." By the end of day 3, I was ready to quit. I wasn't calmer. I felt like I had just put a giant magnifying glass on all my flaws. I was more aware than ever of how little control I had over my own mind. My internal monologue was just a waterfall of complaints. I had tried to go a full day without complaining and failed within an hour. I felt like a total fraud. I had this picture of a Stoic as this serene, unshakable rock, and I was just a jittery mess. That night, I almost didn't pick up my book of Stoic writings, but I forced myself. I read a passage where Marcus Aurelius basically tells himself to stop whining and get on with it. He wrote, "Today I escaped from anxiety. Or no, I discarded it, because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside." And that last part, it just hit me, hard. I had been trying to fight anxiety, to wrestle it down. Marcus was suggesting I just discard it, see it as a product of my own mind. It was a small shift, but it was enough to make me try for one more day. The journey, days 4, 5, the shift. Then, day 4 happened, and something changed. It wasn't a lightning bolt or some huge revelation. It was quiet. It started when I woke up and, for the first time all week, I didn't immediately grab my phone. The habit was slowly starting to form. Instead, I read a quote from Epictetus. "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And for the first time, it didn't sound like a cheesy platitude. It sounded like an instruction manual. Later that morning, the universe sent me another test, another stressful email. Same trigger, same potential for an emotional meltdown. But this time, something was different. Instead of just sitting there, letting the anger bubble up, I remembered another new habit: take a walk. So I did. I got up, left my phone on the desk, and walked outside for 5 minutes. I didn't try to solve the problem or rehearse my angry reply. I just focused on the feeling of the sun and the sound of the birds. I was just present. When I came back, The emotional charge was gone. The problem was still there in my inbox, but the panic was gone. I could look at the email objectively, and I saw the client's real concern hidden under their clumsy wording. I paused, and then I wrote a calm, clear, and helpful response. It felt powerful, like I had finally created a little bit of space between a trigger and my reaction, and in that space, I found my power. Day 5 built on that success. I hit a technical snag that threatened to derail a huge presentation. In the past, this would have sent me into a full-blown panic. I'd imagine every worst-case scenario. This time, I tried another Stoic technique, negative visualization. I took a second to actually imagine the worst realistic outcome. Okay, the tech fails, the presentation is a bust, the client is mad, I look bad. Could I handle that? And the honest answer was, yeah. It would suck, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. By facing that fear head-on, I took away its power. The fear faded, my mind cleared, and I could focus on finding a solution instead of dwelling on the problem. I worked through it, step by step, and got everything working just in time. It wasn't about pretending the problem would magically vanish. It was about looking the worst-case scenario in the eye, accepting it, and then getting back to work on what I could actually control. That night, my journal entry was different. I'm starting to see that calmness isn't about feeling nothing. It's about not letting your feelings hijack your brain. The journey, days 6-7, the realization. Days 6 and 7 were when this stopped feeling like an experiment and started feeling like a new way of living. That constant grinding struggle to fight my own impulses started to fade. It was replaced by something quieter, a more observant mindset. The habits that felt so fake at the start of the week were becoming second nature. On day 6, I was stuck in a long, boring meeting that was going nowhere. People were talking over each other, and you could feel the frustration in the room. The old me, he would have been internally screaming, checking his watch every 30 seconds, and mentally listing all the useful things he could be doing. But instead, I tried to practice some Stoic empathy. I just tried to understand what the other people in the room were dealing with. What were their pressures? What were they trying to accomplish? I actually started listening instead of just waiting for my turn to talk. By detaching my ego from the situation, my own frustration just dissolved. I couldn't control the meeting, but I could control my attention and my attitude. I realized so much of my daily stress came from this quiet, entitled belief that everything should go according to my schedule and my preferences. Letting that go was incredibly freeing. The final boss battle came on day 7. I was driving to a really important appointment and got stuck in a massive, unmoving traffic jam. An accident up ahead. I was going to be late, very late. For the pre-Stoic me, this was the perfect recipe for rage. The feeling of being trapped, the total lack of control, it was a nightmare. I felt that familiar surge of adrenaline, my heart rate climbing, my jaw tightening. I wanted to honk my horn, to yell, to do something. But then, all that practice from the past 7 days just kicked in. I took a deep breath. I looked at the cars around me, all filled with people in the exact same boat. I couldn't control the traffic. I couldn't control time. Getting angry would accomplish absolutely nothing, except flooding my own body with stress. It wouldn't move the cars an inch. So, I accepted it. I truly, deeply accepted it. This is where I am right now. Then I focused on what I could control. I safely picked up my phone, made a quick call to say I'd be late, and then I put on a podcast. I used the time to learn something, instead of stewing in my own anger. I looked around and felt a sense of calm that was completely alien to me in that situation. I wasn't a victim of the traffic jam. I was just a person in a car, in traffic. By the end of day 7, that constant, noisy chatter in my head had finally quieted down. It felt like I'd found the volume knob on my own anxiety and just turned it down. The climax and the transformation. Looking back, the transformation wasn't one big moment. It was the sum of hundreds of small choices. Hundreds of tiny moments where I chose to pause instead of pounce, to accept instead of fight, and to focus on my own actions instead of the chaos around me. So, what about those numbers I started with? The before and after. A week ago, my stress was a constant 8 out of 10. Today, it's closer to a 3. It's not gone, but it's no longer in the driver's seat. And my screen time, that 5+ hour daily habit, dropped by almost 2 hours. Not because I was trying to, but because I no longer needed my phone to escape from my own thoughts. I was just more present. But the real change, the one you can't measure, was that internal shift. I went from being a puppet of my own reactions to being mindfully responsive. It feels like I've installed a crucial buffer between the world and my emotions. Life is still going to throw frustrating emails, annoying meetings, and traffic jams at me. That's never going to change. But what has changed is my ability to meet all of it with a little more space, a little more clarity, and a lot less chaos inside. I realized that the superpower of calmness isn't about being emotionless. It's the opposite. It's the ability to feel an emotion, anger, fear, frustration, and not let it hijack you. It's the clarity that helps you make better decisions when you're under pressure. It's the resilience to get knocked down without falling apart. It's the quiet strength that earns way more respect than loud aggression ever will. I finally understood what Seneca meant when he wrote that wisdom is built moment by moment. Calmness is the foundation that all those good choices are built on. The takeaway, the lesson. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that calmness is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with. It's a skill, and it's a practice. And, like any skill, you can get better at it with conscious effort. You don't have to be a Roman emperor to figure this out. The Stoics gave us a practical toolkit, an operating system for the mind that's more relevant now than ever. If you're feeling overwhelmed by all the noise, here are 3 simple things from this experiment you can start with today. Practice the pause. Seriously, this was the most powerful tool in the entire toolkit. 3 deep breaths is all it takes. In that space, you take your power back. You go from reacting on autopilot to responding with purpose. Ask, is this in my control? Gently and constantly remind yourself to separate what you can influence from what you can't. If you can't control it, practice accepting it. If you can control it, which is almost always just your own thoughts and actions, then put all your energy there. This one question dissolves so much pointless anxiety. Conduct an evening reflection. Before bed, take just 5 minutes to review your day. Ask yourself, what went well? When did I let my emotions get the best of me? What can I try to do differently tomorrow? This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about self-awareness and getting a little bit better each day. Conclusion. This week-long experiment started as a desperate attempt to feel less overwhelmed, and it ended up being one of the most powerful experiences of my life. I'm not a perfect Stoic, not even close. But now I have tools that I know for a fact actually work. I feel like I finally found that hidden strength Marcus Aurelius was talking about, and it was right here inside me the whole time. If you're feeling burned out and exhausted by all the distractions, I honestly can't recommend trying something like this enough. You don't have to do it all at once. Just start small. Pick one thing, like the pause, and just try it for a week. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What are the biggest sources of stress and anxiety in your life? And have you ever tried to apply a big idea like this to a real-world problem? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you found any value in this journey and want more content on practical philosophy for modern life, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you for watching.